Uminder, Uminder, is anybody hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
uh, आपको ये पीपीटी ठीक नजर आ रहा?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, उमिंदर इज एब्सेंट देना. Okay, let me call. One PhD student was attending this class. He is not available. अच्छा, तुम आवाज नहीं दे रहे थे. चलो ठीक है. ओके. Okay. So in 3D, what we have discussed, we have already spent 3 classes in 3D. First one was about what is 3D fabric. Second one was classification of 3D structures. Last class we discussed manufacturing technique. And today we'll discuss structure and properties of 3D fabric. And remember, whatever we have discussed so far in 3D, we are basically dealing with 3D solid structures. And this is the end of the 3D solid structures. From next class, we will switch over to other 3D fabrics. So far, whatever we have discussed in these 4 lectures, they are all about 3D solid structures. And you know what are the 3D solid structures. So 3D solid structures are basically orthogonal, warp interlock, and angle interlock structures. So let us talk about first orthogonal structures. And you know about this, we have discussed last class. In this, this is the how the passage of the yarn, that is how the 3 component yarns are located in the fabric structure. And we have already discussed, and from this diagram you can see how they are manufactured. The blue are your stuffer warp, red is binder warp, and pink color is your weft yarn. So in this, the dots are the weft, and the blue yarn, this is the binder yarn, which is binding the structure. And in this diagram, it is red. And these horizontal threads are the main stuffer yarn. In this, it is the blue yarns. This is how it is the weave diagram of these orthogonal structures. So they are basically, yeah, anybody wants to say something? So they are basically multi-layer fabrics, as you can see here. Here it is a 5-layer fabrics, and there is no space in between That's why we call these fabrics solid structures. So they are thick, they are solid, they are multi-layer, and all the three component yarns are 90° to each other. That's called 3D orthogonal structure. So we'll discuss about what is the speciality of these structures. These structures are characterized by straight yarns or yarn section in warp, weft, and thickness direction. So they are 90° to each other. This is the first characteristics. Second, this structure can provide a greater fiber volume fraction. So I have also already told you what is fiber volume fraction. Just like your packing density in yarn, in a fabric we calculate fiber volume fraction. That means, and particularly this is a 3D fabric. So 3D fabric means the fabric which has substantial thickness. So if it has a thickness, we can easily calculate its volume. Length multiplied by breadth multiplied by thickness, its volume. So in the total volume of the fabric, what is the volume occupied by the fiber? So ratio of the volume of the fiber divided by the volume of the total fabric is called fiber volume fraction. So in this orthogonal structure, it is possible to produce a fabric of greater fiber volume fraction. Greater in the sense it can be maximum goes as high as 40, 50, 55, even in literature it is reported by orthogonal you can also produce fabric up to 60% fiber volume fraction. That means 40% will still remain empty space, voids filled with air. That is what the meaning. And subsequently, because we are not discussing composite material, but I have already told you in previous lectures, these fabrics are specially produced to be used as a preform for making composite materials. And in composites, fiber volume fraction plays an important role. And because higher is the fiber volume fraction, greater is the strength of the composite material. When I'm saying strength, it's not necessarily breaking strength. Strength in the sense, bending properties, shear properties, compression properties, all the properties as far as mechanical behavior of a fabric is concerned, it comes because of the fiber volume fraction. That's why while making these fabrics, we always try to produce a fabric of greater volume fraction. When I'm saying volume fraction means it is basically fiber volume fraction. And the fiber volume fraction in case of these orthogonal structures are higher than what is written here, interlock structures, which we will discuss subsequently. What is you already know interlock structures, but normally orthogonal fabrics can be produced at a higher fiber volume fraction than the interlock structures. Some more information about these orthogonal fabric. Yarns are arranged perpendicular to X, Y, Z direction. That already you know. No interlacing or crimp exists between the yarns, which is obvious. You can have a look in this. You can see all the three yarns X, Y, Z. They are straight, no crimp. And you already know what is the role of crimp in the fabric. Crimp basically decides modulus, extensibility. Higher is the crimp, less is modulus. And since these fabrics are to be used for making composite material, one of the important requirement in composite is modulus. So if the fabric has no crimp or very little crimp, then obviously it is possible to make a composite of higher modulus. So that is the second point. Fiber volume fraction, this point I already explained you. Here it is in 45 to 55. As I said, it can even go up to 60%, but 55 is already very high. These are known as non-interlaced 3D structure. So as you can see here, there is no interlacement. You know what is interlacement? In weaving, we produce structure because of interlacement, and interlacement causes crimp in the yarn. Since there is no interlacement, we call this fabric as zero crimp fabric. And I told you what is the advantage of producing zero crimp fabric. Then require specialized weaving machine. You cannot produce this fabric by normal weaving machine which you have seen. I have already told you last class, I have shown you what kind of machine we use to produce this in manufacturing lecture. They are all specialized weaving machine. Could be a 2D weaving machine with some modifications, or could be specialized customized 3D weaving machine. We have discussed both the type of weaving machine last class. So these are some of the information about these 3D solid orthogonal structures. Some properties. 3D orthogonal fabric is manufactured with a multi-warp yarn structure that you have already seen. The main concept of fabric is to bind straight warp yarns and weft yarns together using binder threads. So there is no need to explain. We have already seen this. They are all straight. Binder yarn holds them. Second point, the warp and weft yarns provide high in-plane stiffness and strength. So in plane you understand, in plane means in the direction of plane, in the direction of warp yarn and weft yarn. The properties are very good. The binder yarn run through the thickness direction, so stabilize the woven structure. So it is the binder yarn, here it is the ZA yarn. Here it is the yarn which you see here vertically, or here this is the binder yarn. The role of binder yarn is to hold the structure. So structural stability is obtained by the binder yarn. That is what written here. Thickness direction to stabilize the woven structure. Then third point. 3D orthogonal woven composites have higher interlaminar fracture toughness. Interlaminar fracture toughness and impact damage resistance than laminated composites. What does it mean? I have given you some examples previous class also. So as you can see here, this is a multi-layer fabric. When we do not have any 3D weaving machine, if you want to have this kind of structure, what we do, we take, let's say here you can see 4 layers. We take 4 different UD fabric, then go on laminating one above the other to get this thickness. But if you are producing this a single structure from 3D weaving technology, then converting the fabric to a composite material, what advantage we get? We get high interlaminar strength because they are integrated structure. When this structure will be subjected to impact force or subjected to bending stress, then these layers will not be delaminated because it is a single integrated structure. That is the point what is written here. The warp and weft yarns provide high in-plane stiffness and strength, and the binder yarns run through the thickness direction to stabilize the woven structure. 3D orthogonal woven composites have higher interlaminar fracture toughness. The interlaminar strength means very less possibility of delamination, and impact damage tolerance. When the structure will be subjected to impact force, the impact damage tolerance also is very high in the composite made from these structures. So these are some of the speciality of these orthogonal 3D solid structure. Structural maneuverability. What is this structural maneuverability? So this is your same. Look at my cursor, orthogonal structure. You have x ion, y ion, z ion. These z ions are your these golden color dots. They are binder threads. Normally, for example, if just one example, if I want to produce a 3D fabric for bulletproof jacket, as you know, in bulletproof jacket, these yarns, these golden color yarns, which is denoted by Z in thickness direction, they are in the thickness direction of the fabric. When bullet will hit, so these are the yarn which has to face the penetration resistance of the bullet. That means to give resistance to bullet penetration in these structures, the role of these yarns, the Z yarns or thickness direction yarns, is much higher than other two yarns, that is stuffer and your weft yarn, that is X and Y yarn. So what do we do? Normally, we try to keep a material or a yarn which is much stronger or which has much high resistance to bullet penetration in the Z axis than the other one. You can put all the three yarns that type, but the question is putting all three yarns which has not much role to play as far as bullet resistance is concerned cost money. So the idea is, since we have three distinct directions, role of each yarn is different, it is possible to choose the yarn depending on our requirement in independent or individual direction. In the end use, you have to see in which direction you want to use the property of the yarn. Try to give high quality or expensive or high performance yarn only in that direction. That is what called structural maneuverability. Okay. Then I will show you another example. What is the role of weave design as far as structure and property of these 3D orthogonal fabrics are concerned? First thing, try to understand. This is, for example, in the picture you see, this is a 4-layer orthogonal fabric, and this is produced using plain weave. As you can see here, this is a plain woven structure, one up, one down, one up, one down, plain woven structure. And this plain woven structure is there in all the 4 layers. It is possible to produce this fabric having different weave design in different layers, but particularly in this structure, as you can see here, we have followed plain weave in all the 4 layers. That's why I have written it orthogonal 1x1 plain woven 3D fabric. I can change this weave design according to my requirement. For example, I am showing you next one is the slide is not moving. Yeah. So this is 4x4 mat. You know what is mat, you know what is haversack, you know what is rib. They are all derivatives of the plain weave. So this is a 4x4 mat, but same 4-layer orthogonal fabric. Similarly, I'll show you another one. This is 4x4 twill orthogonal. I'll show you another one. This is interlock. I have not shown you what is interlock. Next interlock you can see here from interlock. So this is 1x1 plain interlock fabric. Then you can see here interlock without stuffer yarn. There is no stuffer yarn here. Stuffer yarn, you understand. There is no stuffer yarn here. So this is red one is binder one. This is weft. So there is no stuffer yarn here. Here 4x4 twill interlock. This is a interlock fabric having 4x4 twill weave design, and this is 2 by 2 orthogonal with 2 stuffer layer. The idea is why I am showing all these. It is possible to produce these 3D orthogonal fabrics having different weave design. So question arises, why we want to produce 3D orthogonal fabric with different weave design? It is exactly same as you know what is the role of weave design in a fabric mechanical properties. Weave designs decides the crimp. Weave designs decides the float length. Weave design decides the number of interlacement per unit area. For example, in a plain woven fabric, number of interlacement per unit area is the maximum. Two will come next. 13 is the least. So weave design basically decides number of interlacements per unit area. One of the objective to produce these 3D fabric, let's say 3 orthogonal with varying number of interlacements per unit area is to control or manage its impact energy absorption. What does it mean? Just see, this is another fabric. This is another fabric of different interlacement per unit area. This is another fabric. So I have so many designs to give you. The whole idea is I want to produce this fabric with a different number of interlacements per unit area. Change the design, I can have a different number of interlacements per unit area in this fabric. So look at this curve carefully. The x-axis is number of crossover points per unit area of the fabric. There is a little overlapping, so you can write down number of crossover points per unit area in the fabric. Y-axis is impact energy absorption, which is nothing but impact strength. Impact. Higher is the impact strength means the structure can absorb more impact energy. That's what the meaning is. So what is in this x-axis? In x-axis, different weave design. Different weave design means the weave designs are arranged in ascending order of their number of interlacements per unit area. I repeat, weave designs are arranged in this axis in the ascending order of their number of crossover points per unit area. Number of crossover points mean number of interlacement. Interlacement and crossover point is one and the same thing when warp interlaced with weft. So x-axis represents number of crossover points per unit area in increasing order. Impact energy in this in joule. As the number of interlacements per unit area increases, the impact energy absorption increases. Means higher is the impact strength. This is just to show you one example. Similarly, by changing weave design in a 3D fabric, in all the layers, what I have already shown you, the same weave design in all the layers. You can also vary the weave design in different layers. You can change the other mechanical properties of the fabric and the composite to be made out of that fabric. In terms of tensile, in terms of bending, in terms of compression, in terms of shear properties, and what I am showing here you is in terms of impact properties. That is what the conclusion from this. By changing weave design, we change the number of crossover points per unit area, and as the number of crossover points per unit area increases, the impact energy absorption increases. It's not necessarily you will get this increasing order or this type of linear curve with respect to tensile, bending, shear, compression. You may get different results. But the point is, we can change the weave design to get different properties. Changing weave design changes the properties of the fabric and the composite made out of that. That is what we want to conclude from this. Okay, so all this what I discussed so far is about orthogonal fabric, 3D multi-layer orthogonal solid structure. I explained you all the point. Orthogonal 3D multi-layer solid structures. So you must be in a position to understand and explain why these four terms are linked to this. Okay, 3D multi-layer orthogonal solid structures. Now I'm switching over to next type of solid structure, warp interlock. It is again a multi-layer fabric. You can produce it in a normal weaving machine, but with certainly different some modifications. In this case, normally we take warp yarns directly from the krill when you will be in the lab, in 3D lab particularly, not in our weaving lab. In the 3D lab, you can have a look to this machine, how the yarns are coming from the krill for weaving. In normal weaving, we take yarn from a beam. I have already shown you last class how the yarns are coming from a krill, and so this is how this structure is produced. This is a warp interlock structure. Look at this, how the yarns are coming and how they are making the fabric. So this is a multi-layer Z and X is the webbed yarn here. So this is webbed interlock and warp interlock you can produce by this way. So it is different from orthogonal in the sense these yarns are not right angle to each other. They're at certain angles. I'll show you this interlock in a different manner by the next category, third one. It's called angle interlock. This is, we term this warp interlock. The basic difference is these interlocking yarns, they are traversing from this surface to the next surface without changing their passage. They start from here, go at certain angle till on the other surface of the fabric. Similarly, from here again coming back without changing its direction, but at a certain angle to the previous surface. Okay, this is the speciality of warp interlock principle. So we can make this whether it is warp or webbed interlock. They are used to bind several layers of webbed. Several layers of webbed. Okay, so here these straight yarns, this is a webbed interlock. Remember why it is called webbed interlock? The straight yarn you see here, they are stopper warp 1, 2, 3, and these yarns are webbed yarn. So interlocking is taking place through the webbed yarn. Okay, then the properties I will come little later. Similar fashion that is called angle interlock. See, this is an impression of angle interlock structure. Looking from here and here, you can make out what is the difference. I'll show the fabric structure of this. This is a computerized simulation of angle interlock structure. The actual fabric structure is like this. Look at what is fundamental difference between this structure and these structures. I am saying this is warp or webbed interlock, and these I am saying angle interlock. The difference is in warp interlock or webbed interlock, the yarns are passing at certain angle but traversing from one surface to the other surface of the thickness, from top to bottom, again bottom to top. Whereas in angle interlock, the yarns, they can go at certain angle, but not necessarily they have to go from one surface to the other surface of the thickness. They change their path in between. Look at this yarn is coming here, 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 and it is not going to the top other surface. It has changed its path here. Then it is going like this. From here, it is, take any direction, any change. You can look at, for example, this block like this, you will find that somewhere here it is going in this way. So the difference is they are multi-layer fabric. The yarns are certain angle, not like 90° as you can see in orthogonal, but they are different from warp or weft interlock in the sense that each warp yarn or weft yarn, instead of passing from one surface to the other surface, they can change their path at any intermediate layer. Because of this change of passage in intermediate layer, each layer are adhered or stitched or linked to other layer. So the structure as a whole becomes an integrated structure. So this layer is connected to this by some interlacement, by some changing of path of warp yarn in between. That is called angle interlock. As you can see here, the yarn is coming from a creel. So you must understand another fundamental point at this stage. Why we want a yarn from creel instead of a beam? Look at this structure and look at this structure, or even look at the orthogonal structure here. In all these structures, the consumption of length of warp yarn of all the warp are same. For example, to produce, let's say 100-meter fabric, all the warps consumption would be 110 or 115, whatever. But in order to produce this fabric, all the warp yarn consumed here are of different length. It depends which warp yarn is passing in what path. There are some warp yarn, they are passing through a complex path with a longer path. There are certain yarn which are passing a shorter path. So if the passage of each warp yarn is different, the length of yarn consumed for each warp is different, and consumption of each warp yarn, if they are different, obviously we cannot take the yarn from a beam. Because if the warp is coming from a beam, then the let-off mechanism will act in such a manner. All the yarns rewound from the beam will be of same length. But if every individual yarn is coming from a creel in the package, depending on consumption of each independent warp yarn here, the yarn will be withdrawn from the cone or from any package, depending on how much length is consumed in this fabric formation. That's the reason why we want to draw the yarn from a creel in such kind of design where the consumption of length of warp yarn is different for every independent end. Okay. So this is the example of angle interlock. As I said, it is a multi-layer structure. distinguished by individual layers. Each layer may be of a different weave. You can use for a different layer, different weave design. Stitching by layers. So each layer they are connected because of stitching by the passage of warp yarn itself. There is no separate stitching or laminating process. The whole structure is an integrated structure because of passage of interlacement of their warp yarn. Structure ranges from 2 to 4 layers or even more. You can go for even more layer, number of layers to make this fabric. So this is about 3 structures, that is orthogonal, warp interlock and angle interlock fabric. In 3D, we will come across other structures like hollow structures, cell structures, nodal structures. I'll just show you the diagram and we will discuss in subsequent classes all these in detail. These are hollow structures you can see. These are all woven fabric with some hollowness. We'll discuss this how they will be produced. These are also 3D fabric. It is called cell structure. It has formed a cell. These are all woven fabric. And there you can make out from their shape where they are being used, making helmet or maybe some dome shape structures. These are nodal structures. They are also 3D fabric. So they are used in a huge quantity in aircraft, composite channels, gas distribution, fuel distribution to different positions, or maybe in medical textiles, artery, multi-channel blood vessels. Okay. And this is another fabric which we have discussed last class, 3D woven fabric by dual shading, if you recall. So this is a 2-weft 1-warp weaving system. So all warp in the Z plane. So here all the dots you can see here are warp in this structure. And this is X1 is horizontal weft and this vertical one is vertical weft. Okay. So this is dual shading 3D fabric. We call it a true 3D fabric, which is produced using 2-weft 1-warp. In previous 3D fabric orthogonal, what you have seen is 2-warp 1-weft fabric. Okay. So these are idea, some information. The topic is very, very lengthy, but your syllabus is also lengthy. So whatever information I have given you from undergraduate point of view, it is enough. We cannot deal more detailed structure property relationship because we have to cover so many other chapters. Now I'll give you some idea how these structures are produced by deciding their construction particulars. For example, nowadays you are all in 3rd year, we are studying the theory of textile structure in woven fabric by Pierce geometry, from where you can calculate what is the all weaving parameters, all construction parameters, what will be the fabric thickness, what is the fabric packing specific volume. We can calculate aerial density, what is the GSM of the fabric. You can calculate cover factor, you can calculate crimp, you can calculate all these parameters. Similarly, in this 3D fabric, we will also, I'll give you just one simple model by which you can calculate only 3 parameters which we frequently used for these fabrics. You can calculate all the parameters, but only 3, which is very important because the reason is I told you all what these 3D fabrics are produced nowadays, they go for primarily for composite manufacturing or for safety purposes, that is for bulletproof jacket, all these protective clothing, what you call it. And the modeling which I want to discuss before you is only geometrical model. Otherwise, we have normally 3 types of model. One is very simple one, geometrical model, where we decide what will be the construction parameters of the fabric. The other one is FEM, finite element model. This is otherwise it is called mechanical model, in which we predict mechanical properties like tensile strength, bending, compression, shear, etc., impact. That's called mechanical modeling. Then third one is structural modeling. In structural modeling, we predict the performance, like how much will be ballistic resistance behavior, how much is the cut resistance characteristics, means to what extent it can sustain the cutting force, to what extent it can sustain the ballistic, that is bullet resistance, bullet penetration. So those are all performance parameter, prediction of performance of the fabric. Here it is prediction of mechanical properties of the fabric, and here it is called prediction of the constructional detail of the fabric as you are doing in Pierce geometry. So in your syllabus, I'll just give you today very briefly about this geometrical modeling, means how the construction detail of these or dimensional parameter of this fabric is predicted. And that too only I will tell you three. What are those three? Let us see. So, which I already explained. What are the geometrical model? We you know already. In Pierce geometry, you all calculate this. So to give you a very clear-cut idea what we want to find out, I will compare this geometrical modeling for these 5 different type of structures. One is UD, that is unidirectional fabric. We will compare with a 2D woven fabric. All the fabric which you have comes across so far, all 2D woven fabric which has a warp and weft. In this fabric there is only one yarn. Then the 3D fabric, in which just now we discussed all the 3 different type of 3D fabric: 3D orthogonal, 3D angle interlock, 3D warp interlock. So I will show you structurally how these 5 are different. You can make out them. This is UD. So all the, you can see why we are calling it UD, why we are not calling. We have some yarns in this cross direction, but if all the 100% yarns will be only in this direction, you cannot make a fabric. We need some thread in cross direction to hold this structure, but they are very insignificant, very small in thickness and also very small in frequency. Maybe in every 2 inches we have inserted one thread just to hold this structure. But for all practical point of view, from all mechanical properties point of view, this is a UD fabric, UD, unidirectional fabric. All the yarns are in one direction and we represent structurally in this manner. Second one is 2D fabric. So there is no need to explain. All weaving is all 2D fabric, that is warp and weft. Let's say this is a plain woven fabric. So how they are interlaced in weaving machine, you can see from this diagram. Then the third one, 3D interlock fabric. This you have already seen. This is 3D angle interlock fabric. Just now we explained, and you can similarly have a 3D orthogonal fabric also, which you know. In all these structures, what are the key fabric parameters? Number of thread layers, thread density. When I am saying thread density, you have to be very careful. It's a number of thread layers, means, for example, it is a 5-layer fabric. So thread density means if we are calculating number of threads per unit per inch, then you have to first remember it is a number of layers. In each layer, you can find out thread density, let's say 5 thread. So it is if it is a 4-layer fabric, 5 into 4, 20 threads per unit distance. So that is how you have to be carefully calculate thread density. Then cross-sectional geometry. This is very important, which now we are doing. For example, you recall Pierce geometry. We are assuming that all the yarns are of circular in cross section. And also I have given you some example last lecture, if you recall. If the cross-sectional shape will change, the fabric properties will change. And change of cross-sectional shape, I have already shown you one in last class, in one numerical also in all the groups, that is aspect ratio, major axis over minor axis. Okay, so once the cross-section will change means this aspect ratio will change. And change of cross-section changes complete fabric properties. Okay, then fabric areal density, this you know, GSM. Fabric thickness, it's very simple. What is the thickness of the fabric? Because it is a multi-layer fabric. The basic purpose of producing 3D fabric is, one of the basic purposes to produce very thick fabric. That's why it is called 3D. Then fiber volume fraction. I have already explained you what is fiber volume fraction. Volume occupied by fiber in the fabric as a total volume of the fabric. Total volume means length multiplied by breadth multiplied by thickness. That is total volume. And in that volume, how much space is occupied by fiber? So that volume of fiber divided by total volume of fabric is called fiber volume fraction. So we are interested in these geometrical parameters of a 3D fabric. So what is the basic principle of measuring this geometry or carrying out this geometrical model to know these fabric parameters? The principle is written here. An analytical method for calculating the geometrical description of the fabric, which you call unit cell. You already know in a unit cell in the PS geometry. Here unit cell will be simply length, breadth and thickness in some unit. Based on the summation of volumes of taus in the three principal direction is considered. So what do we do? If you know tau, taus means yarn, multifilament yarn. If you can calculate what is the volume of those taus or yarns used to make this fabric, and if you know the total unit cell dimension. Unit cell dimension means, for example, this is a unit cell. It has a constant length, breadth and height, L, X, L, Y and H. So you know this is called unit cell and you can find out the volume. And if you know what is the volume occupied by these fibers kept inside, as I said here written, the fiber volume, summation of the volume of taus. Taus is nothing but yarns. Total taus used in this fabric. Then you can find out the geometrical parameters of this fabric. So the unit cell represents the smallest repeat unit of the weave architecture. The unit cell describes the whole reinforcing fabric. It is generally accepted that the predicted behavior of the unit cell is representative of the 3D fabric as a whole. These are just our assumptions. Okay, now coming to what are the variability in this model? Means which parameter we can vary. This model enables to play with tau linear density. You understand this. Linear density means count. Count of the tau means count of the yarn used. Thread density, I already told you what is thread density. Number of tau layers, how many layers there in the fabric. Binding structure. So which yarn is binding this structure? What is their configuration? Packing factor of taus. So this is packing factor, packing density of the taus. This is different from this tau linear density. Here packing factor is same as for a fabric it is fiber volume fraction. For a yarn it is called packing factor. It is same as the packing density which you study in theory of textile structure part 1 yarn. And aspect ratio. I told you what is aspect ratio. I will show you some example of aspect ratio also subsequently. To predict only 3 factors I am working for to show you: areal density, thickness and fiber volume fraction. So we will be using these red color as a input parameter to this model, and our output parameter, that is what we want to predict from these, is areal density, that is GSM, thickness of the fabric, let's say in millimeter, fiber volume fraction. So it is a fraction. There is no unit. Normally we express it in percentage maybe. Okay. So let us see, proceed further. First, we discussed cross-sectional shape. I already explained you what is importance of tau cross-section, because cross-sectional shape changes means the packing will change, as you know this. For example, in spinning the yarn, you know, if the cross-sectional are circular or cross-sectional are different, then the number of fibers in the cross-section will vary depending on their cross-sectional shape in the spinning. And same here also in the fabric. Normally, we assume these are the three probable cross-section of these yarns: circular, racetrack, elliptical. So if the yarn is compressible, then this circle may be converted to racetrack if it is compressed, or if it is more compressed, converted to an ellipse. These are three probable cross-sectional shape. There could be many, but for the simplicity, we have taken these three cross-section. And obviously, in these three cross-section, when they will go to fabric, and if you take the cross-section of the unit cell of the fabric, you will get the cross-section of the fabric in this shape. In case of circular, this will be like this: unit cell in racetrack, unit cell in elliptical cross-section. And what we have found that the aspect ratio, that is major axis by minor axis, for a circular cross section it is 1, as obvious, you know, major axis minor axis both are same, diameter d upon d is equal to 1. Racetrack it is 3. In elliptical this value is about 11. This is calculated by taking actual cross section of the yarn in the fabric, and we found that the circular, obviously it is 1. If it is taking racetrack shape, the aspect ratio is going to be 3. If we are taking elliptical shape, the aspect ratio is going to be 11. So input parameters to the model are linear density, thread density, number of layers, binder structure, packing factor of the taus, cross-sectional geometry, that is aspect ratio. What do we want to compute? What are the means output parameter? We want to compute these three: fabric aerial density, fabric thickness, fiber volume fraction. Okay, so you can put any symbol to these three: aerial density, thickness, fiber volume fraction. Okay, so now I will show you only symbols to all these parameters. So these are the symbol used to express the linear density, and it is a 3D fabric. We have three type of yarn: stuffer, binder, and the weft yarn. So stuffer, binder, F stands for filling, weft yarn. So mu S, mu F, mu V is the linear density. Rho is the density of yarn. So since we are using same yarn in all three, stuffer, binder, and filling, density of all the yarn same. So rho is the density of the yarn used. Number of stuffers along the weft direction. It is, we are talking about thread density, and this is the symbol. Number of stuffers along the weft direction in the unit cell. This is the number of fillers. This is the number of binders. Okay, because we in a unit cell we have to see how many threads are there, and we will calculate these three prediction factors: aerial density, thickness, and volume fraction in the unit cell. Unit cell is nothing but this one: unit length, breadth, and thickness. Okay, so what I am showing you now, all these symbols used to these parameters, geometrical parameters of the fabric. Similarly, gamma, SFB. Remember, S stands for stuffer, F stands for filling, weft, B stands for binder thread. These are the only three threads in the 3D fabric. N the number of ions, stuffer, filler, and binder. Aspect ratio, stuffer, filler, binder. H, thickness of each ion, stuffer, filler, binder. Capital H, thickness of unit cell, total thickness of the unit cell is capital H, which we are interested to find out, thickness of the fabric. LSLFB, length of stuffer in a unit cell, what is the length of each ion? So this is total length of each ion. This is length of each ion in one layer, in one unit cell. So total length will be this multiplied by the number of layers. Okay, this is capital L is total length. Total volume of stuffer, filler, binder. Length of unit cell in X, Y, and direction. So in the fabric, M, mass of the unit cell, SUC, areal density of unit cell, F, VF, fiber volume fraction of the unit cell. After knowing all these parameters and their symbol, you can calculate what is the thickness of the towers, and I'll from here I'm closing it. It's already time. I'll continue from this slide next class how to calculate these three parameters. I have only shown you the symbols. Next class I'll continue start from here. You can log out. Omender,
प्रेजेंट सर।
हाँ क्या हुआ तुम्हारा?
सर मेल रिसीव नहीं आई उनकी।
तुमने भेज दिया था ना मेल?
यस सर।
कोई रिप्लाई नहीं आया?
नो सर।
कैसे करोगे फिर? चलो देखो, वेट करो और बीच में और एक रिमाइंडर दे देना।
ओके सर।
हाँ, रीजन वही बार बार लिखना। तुम रीजन नहीं दोगे तो कोई नहीं सुनेगा।
यस सर।
हाँ, वही देखना, तुम लिखो एग्जैक्टली वही सेंटेंस। माय हाउस इज लोकेटेड इन द इनसाइड द हिल एरिया वेयर देयर इज नो सिग्नल. I am finding it difficult to attend the classes as well as it will be difficult for my exam also.
यस सर।
ये रीजन देके कर लेना, देखते हैं। ठीक है, ओके।
ओके सर।